Okay, we are live. Just gonna get this posted to X here. Alrighty. Oh, take a deep breath. Welcome to our 2025 Masters recap. Once again, Tyler Hergert here, taking you through an unbelievable day. This is a day that you know we're gonna remember for a long, long time. I mean, this is what you want when you are a sports fan. When when you're watching anything, you want what happened today to play out. Now, it didn't happen as a lot of people had thought. Um, that's the that's probably the craziest part is we didn't expect it to turn into the duel that it ended up being. Um, it just what a crazy day with Rory McIlroy finally exercising all of those demons, and he ends up being the Masters champion, a major champion once again. And now he joins the fraternity of Sarazen, Hogan, Player, Nicklaus, and Woods. And now you can add McIlroy to the legends of the game that have won the career Grand Slam. And he did it Rory's way. And you don't expect him to do it any other way. Quite frankly, it's just not surprising the way how he did it. For him to do it in that fashion, um, it's not surprising that it he did it the hard way. All the ups and downs will go over quite a bit of the round. I mean, I have I think 5 or 6 pages of notes because it was that thrilling of an afternoon. But that was it lived up to the billing. And we talked about this yesterday in our live show. If you were there with us, we were talking about this is what you want in sports, kind of what I was echoing a moment ago. How you want this. You want it to be thrilling. You want it to be riveting till the very end. And you wanted McIlroy and DeChambeau to go head to head. But sometimes the unexpected is it's all right too. And you had comers and goers, and this top portion of the first page of the leaderboard is a little perplexing when you look at it, because there are guys that are there that you think, well, maybe where did they come from, like Sung J Im, and then there are other guys like Bryson DeChambeau who faltered, and we were kind of billing it as a duel, ended up being anything but, just turned into a wild, wild day at the Masters, and it started on the very first hole. We'll go through. Let's go through the round first, and then we'll get to some thoughts on obviously what this means for Rory. Talk about Justin Rose. Talk about Bryson. I want to talk a little bit about Ludwig as well. But let's go through the day. I'm just going to go right down the notepad here from everything. Actually, before we get to the first, there was so much excitement really from the end of yesterday, right? When by the time that CBS got off the air, there was just this excitement from everyone just waiting for what's coming up next. I mean, you just didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow, being today. And like I couldn't even sleep last night. I was so excited. I was ready to go. And I'm sure a lot of people felt so amped up because there was this crescendo of it's going to be ecstatic. And you knew something big was going to happen. You didn't know what, but there was so much energy and excitement. And the broadcast did such a great job, even though they didn't show a shot for about the first 9 or 10 minutes when CBS was on the air, and it still felt right. Um, and firstly, credit to CBS for doing such a phenomenal job. I love Trevor Immelman in the booth with Jim Nance. They really mesh together very well. And it's also kind of cool to see that Jim Nantz calling, Trevor Immelman's win in 2008 and having Trevor there to walk you through the course, especially from his perspective, knowing what it takes to win, especially in the era that he won in. They did such a great job. And I thought the broadcast really built it up to be so ecstatic. All right, let's dive right into it. First hole, it was shaky, very nervy from the start. Rory and Bryson missing the fairway, and Rory immediately with the double bogey, getting himself down to 10 under, and Bryson walks up and pours in that par putt. And I thought that was a warning shot at the beginning. I thought, okay, here we go. This is where the duel begins. I didn't think it would. I didn't think they'd be tied after the first hole, but hey, there they go. And then the second, Rory, and he said this in his post-round press with Jim Nantz in Butler Cabin, talked about how nervous he was entering the course, and maybe that double bogey almost settled him down, but it still looked like 2, he was fighting off some of those nerves. 3 seemed to be really where he got going. I think 2, when he made par, Rory did. Even though Bryson took a one up lead, to use the Ryder Cup term, it felt like still Rory was there, and there was like a waiting of, okay, he's going to get going here pretty soon. Almost like when you walk up to the course and you step up on the first tee, you didn't get to the driving range at all, and you have to just hit a couple of breakfast balls to get yourself into a rhythm. It kind of felt that way for Rory. He just needed to get into the course a little bit, probably get into his rhythm, get into his process, and then start going. And that's what he did on the third hole. Bryson making important birdie, what we thought at the time would be very important. Walks up there, gets bird, and then Rory, his shot on 3. The way that he pounded that drive, got himself up there into that spot, and that second shot is so hard because Dottie Pepper mentioned this on the broadcast, where you had one hop in between you, in between the runoff and the hole, and that thing could roll right back to you. And he did such a great job. Instead of risking that, he bumped it into the hill, and he played it enough to where he knew it would go past the hole, and actually ended up going up the hill a little bit. I thought that was a minor brilliant move from Rory, rather than risking having it come back down at him, even though it's a risky play because you don't know, it could stick into the hill and come back down anyway. He had enough pace to where he pretty much eliminated that. And I thought that was a sneaky, really big shot. And obviously making that birdie putt gets him to 11. Bryson then makes bogey, which was pretty surprising that Bryson ended up making bogey, but that seemed to begin the downfall for Bryson. You get the 2-shot swing again, this time at the third, and then at the fourth, another 2-shot swing. Rory steps up and absolutely drills a perfect shot, got himself into birdie range. He didn't comfortably make those 2 birdies on 3 and 4. Used the side door, but he made them. And that's what you need to be a champion sometimes. And he ended up making birdie there. Bryson again ends up faltering, gets a bogey, and you're looking at the starts for the 2 guys, and you're thinking, wow, Rory's starting off 6-5-3-2. Actually isn't the worst thing in the world, because he built that momentum going forward, and Bryson, the complete opposite, takes the lead, but then back-to-back bogeys really halted his momentum, and his putter ended up really being a detriment to him overall. Bryson losing over 2 strokes to the field putting today, and that's 49th, coincidentally 48th in strokes gained putting, Rory McIlroy. But Bryson, just the iron play was not there all week long, and it ended up really hurting him in the end. Certainly down the stretch where he had to take some riskier shots. But that advantage for Rory there, and then you get that 2-shot swing on 4, and then a big par on 5 for Rory. Another opportunity for another one of those swings, and he makes par, and I think that really settled him down. He had the nerves, the lows on 1, gets the highs back on 3 and 4, makes par on 5, and that kind of started off a 4-hole stretch of just get par. And he ended up doing that. Same thing for Bryson. They ended up playing all square through the 8th. And then you get to 9. And, well, let's back up really quick. I forgot the second shot on 7 for Rory. I wrote down in my notes, will be an all-timer if he wins. And that was at the time of the shot. That was right after he hit it. That's what I wrote down in my notes. There were a couple other iron shots out there that I think we will remember certainly for a long time. But missing that birdie putt on 7, I thought was almost like a harbinger of what ended up playing out on the back 9 for Rory, with the exception of the playoff. But the fact that he hit that shot, unbelievable, but not converting on the birdie. It's just another message of, he's still a little shaky with the putter in his hand, not necessarily under pressure, but with an opportunity to continue to build on his lead. That would have put him at 13 under and having that 4-stroke lead. He ends up getting to that on 9. And I thought it was important that Rory went first on 9, because then he was able to knock in the birdie, make Bryson nervous, and make Bryson have to then match it. And it turned into match play a little bit, and that's what happens in those duels. And we saw that with like Phil and Henrik Stenson in 2016. They pulled so far away from the field, if you recall, that it turned into match play. And sometimes in match play, you actually want to go first. You want to make that putt. And that ended up playing out in the playoff too, because when Rory makes that putt on 9, pressure completely swings to Bryson. Now it's, instead of Bryson gaining ground, he has to match ground and has to also play semi-defensive, because he can't go all out, knowing if he were to 3-putt, which he had done before in the round, he at the time might be thinking, I'm out of it. I'm 5 shots back going into the back 9. So huge moment there for Rory, stepping up, drilling that birdie. Bryson does convert on par. 13 under for Rory at the time, 9 under for Bryson at the time. We head to the back, and they talked about, and Trevor Immelman, he mirrored the thought that I had when Rory made that walk from 9 to 10. All I could think about was 2011. I've seen that shot countless times. I've rewatched that final round, not as much. I've rewatched that full final round about 2 or 3 times, so I remember quite a bit of what happens there. And I can hear Faldo's reaction when he could not believe when Rory asked if there was out of bounds after he snap hooked it way left. And it was one of those moments where you knew the championship would turn on its head. If he were to knock it down the fairway, which he ended up doing, who knows where it's going to go from here. You didn't expect the roller coaster ride that we would go on the back 9, but you knew that would at least perhaps ease the pressure for Rory. He ends up walking up and pounding that thing right down the middle. And then his second shot was strange. When he let go of the club, I thought it didn't sound heavy. It didn't look thin. The only thing I could think of was, did he hurt himself? Because he grimaced a little bit. And all he does is stick it to, 5-6 feet. And again, rolls in another birdie, gets himself up to 14 under. And that's where he held what you thought was an insurmountable lead. But then it just keeps on playing out. Let's see. Rose nearly making a 3 on 13. Boy, how big does that look now? Could not believe how that putt didn't drop. That putt, and I love the angle that CBS uses, which is why I think they do such a phenomenal job with their golf telecast. But the fact that that ball went around the hole, it was like unbelievably somehow going around it. I thought for sure it would drop, and it actually, if you rewatched it on one of the replays where they slowed it down, it actually looked like as it got to the hole, it slightly turned to the left, which sometimes happens when you have a really slow and fast and well cut green. Actually, when you get to the hole, it's almost like there's a little ridge going up it. So sometimes when you hit those putts, and if you've played enough golf, it's happened to you where you've gone right up to the edge and it might rotate back just a smidge. That it looked like what happened to Rosie there, but instead he ends up making his third straight birdie. And that made things okay. Well, he's there. He got to 10 under at the time. We'll see. Let's head to 11 with the final pairing of Bryson and Rory. Bryson had to go for it on 11, and I'd be curious to hear what he has to say in his post-round press conference if they go into detail about that conversation between him and Jibo, because it seemed like he just had to go. There was no way around it. You just had to go at the flag. It was desperation time. You're down at the time 5. He ends up losing a stroke there to go down 6. He just had to. You had to throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks. Just tugged it a little bit, and it seems like anytime you go for that flag, the ball always drifts a couple of yards more to the left. And but then Rory getting that big break where the ball doesn't go into the water, and it's just sitting up there, and you're thinking, is this going to drop into the water? And he's 3 inches away from that thing rolling into the water and having him take a drop. We've got PA Niner fan 87 in the chat saying the most electric Masters I've seen in a long time. Yes, you are correct. And we all are thinking the same thing. That was one of the most electric Masters and sporting events, really, that's taken place in a long time. And it's like I said at the top, a little more unique than what we were thinking. Thought it might be a duel, turned into hey, everyone join in on the party. So Rory, after nearly putting it into the water on 11, I thought he played a passive chip. And Trevor Immelman spoke about this as well. He said it right away, and I said it as well while watching, and that's why I wrote it down. I just wrote passive chip. I don't understand. I thought he could have gotten a little more aggressive. Didn't really have the water in play. And it's, we'll talk about how on 13, he went too aggressive. And who knows, maybe there was a little bit of 11 in mind where he had revisionist history of like, I could have gone for it on 11, played too passive, maybe overcompensated on 13. But I thought he had a chance to put it a little more snug, get a tad closer and maybe make par. Ends up making bogey, played 12. That was Jim Nantz talking about the conversation Rory had with Jack Nicklaus, walking through every single shot. I guarantee you, Rory thought about what Jack told him. Go right over the middle of the bunker. That's the Tiger way. That's the Jack way. That's the Green Jacket way. You go right over the bunker. And I talked about that earlier in the week. I can't remember which day it was for a recap show, but I was saying that a lot of the past champions, when they got to 12, they all pretty much played it very well. Very seldom would you see a wild or errant shot. Really, the only one that that I can recall was from Scotty Scheffler, where he ended up chipping in to make the 2. But it seemed like a lot of the champions of the Masters, they figured out 12. and that's how you win. Um, and it was just it was just the perfect shot, and you're thinking, well, okay. Now I will say I was texting with some people. I texted I texted my dad actually, and texting with him and some other of my buddies, and let's see if I can. Okay, so I said he must get through 12 and 13 dry, and that was at 2 hour time. So I think that had to have been right around 10 or 11. And I said he must get through 12 and 13 dry. A water ball on either hole could deflate the momentum he had. Well, let's get to 13. Before we get there, PA Niner fan, I think he peeked at the board before his chip on 11. Maybe he looked there. It certainly looked like he took a long look at the leaderboard right after 11 before he made the walk up to 12, which actually might make that shot on 12 more impressive. The fact that he kept talking about being in his own little world and trying not to scoreboard watch, and he knows where he stands. Maybe he saw he had a big enough lead, and that helped calm him, and that's why he hit that shot on 12 so well. But yeah, that was that could be an observation as to why he played it a little more passive rather than going at it. PA Niner fan 87 also said the same thing when Tiger said the same thing. Tiger did the same thing when he won in 2011. Absolutely, and remember in 2019, I should say, and remember that year. What was it? 5 of the 6 players in the final 2 groups, because they had to go groups of 3, water ball. Tiger the only one dry, and that's that Masters knowledge. And I think it'd be interesting what Rory would say had he not talked to Jack about playing shot by shot, especially on 12. So let's go to 13. Rory had about 235 in, close to the go zone. I understand laying up. I think that's fine. I don't think there was an issue with Rory laying up. I think the biggest problem was, why bring water into play on the third? Just play it way left, and you know that you have to just you can run it down the slope. And I get, maybe if you run it down the slope and it dribbles into the water, that'd be unlikely. So I don't know if he was trying to just take it on, and just a very questionable decision there to even consider anything really 10 feet left of the pin. That's about the edge that he really should have been looking at. Anything right of that makes pretty much no sense. He's not chasing. All he has to do is protect. If he gets 5, that would have been no big deal. But he might have been trying to, I don't know if he was trying to get back from that bogey on 12. I don't know if he was trying to, I don't know what he was trying to do there. PA Niner fan 87 says, I was thinking Rory was playing it perfect up till he hit into the water. How do you not aim at the bunkers for that third shot? I would be so far from the water. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say. It's easy to armchair quarterback and say, oh, I would do this. And execution is another thing too, right? He might have been trying to aim it left. It looked like he chunked the crap out of it too. Like it didn't look like he hit. Now, it wasn't a Spieth chunk like in 2016. And a lot of reaction saying that was one of the worst shots ever. Man, people forget that 2016 Jordan Spieth, the third shot after he dropped. That was a pretty bad shot. I still think that one takes the cake for one of the worst under pressure. And Todd Hamilton certainly threw in some terrible shots last year at the Open Championship. If you're a fan of the shotgun start, you'll certainly remember that. But I didn't I didn't think it was the worst. It was reminiscent of Jordan Spieth, but it was more of the decision. I think was more what I guess more worse than the actual execution of the shot. Um, so that drops him down to 11, and now everyone's back in. Oberg is in there. Rose, who just had an absolute Shane Bacon psycho scorecard Hall of Fame day, is right back in there. And Rose getting the great tee shot on 16, and this is all happening at the same time. Rose has just birdied 15. He's sitting at 10 under, gets to 11 under with that birdie, and I do want to say on that double bogey, though, I was watching a lot of Amen Corner this week on ESPN Plus for the Masters feed, and I watched a lot of it this morning, and I saw putts on the right side of the pin on 13, right where Rory was. A lot of players were looking for break. There wasn't any. And Trev said on the same thing, or it said the same thing. He said, it's a straight putt. There's nothing in it. And if you were watching Amen Corner all morning long into the main feed coverage, you would have seen the same thing, that's a dead straight putt. And Rory he thought he might have seen some break, and it's one of those where Augusta plays a little bit of, it plays tricks with your eyes, and it certainly did for Rory. And yeah, that Rosie scorecard, it's one of the craziest. He had 10 birdies on the day, ending up with 10 birdies and not winning in the final round. You typically think you birdie 10 times at Augusta in the final round, you're going to win. But just the effort to get himself back into the playoff was heroic in itself. But that birdie on 16 by Rose, he gets to 11. And then Rory bogeying 14. Just a crazy turn of events. Now he's down to 10 over. And then Rose on 17, when he makes his bogey, you could tell he was very uncomfortable standing over that putt. He never looked like he was ready to hit that putt. He looked like he was he didn't know what it was going to do. I don't think he knew if he wanted to lightly tap it and let the slope take its course or ram it through the slope. And he did. I can't remember who did it yesterday, but might have been Tyrrell Hatton, who 3-putted 17. And we were talking about those putts where they're the short ones that, do you ram it in this dead center and risk slightly missing your line? Or do you try and play it outside of the hole? Do you test it and let it drift in? It takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to do that. And Rosie just slightly misplayed it, but he never looked comfortable. And you can tell when a player doesn't want to hit a putt. It looked like he wanted to be anywhere but standing over that putt. And then the shot on 15 by Rory. Those two shots, 15 ended up being the storyline of the tournament, but one of the many storylines of the tournament for Rory. But he steps up there, slings it around the trees, and again, giving himself an opportunity for eagle. But like Tiger in 2011 in the final round after sticking it close, and unlike himself yesterday, Rory misses the putt. Doesn't get the eagle. Does get himself up to 11, though. Ludwig Oberg is in the mix as well. Just a weird putt, though, on 15 by Rory. It just was like, I don't know. Weird. That's the only thing I could think of. Was just weird and bizarre that he never gave it a chance. But there were some other putts that were weird and bizarre, certainly today. And then Rory gets it a nice shot there on 16. And then the Rose birdie on 18. I wrote down, it reminded me of Marco Mira in 1998 and Adam Scott as well in 2013. Marco Mira, that was to win. Adam Scott's was to get into the playoff. with Angel Cabrera, which Scott ended up winning, also in a playoff. But yeah, that was some putt by Justin Rose. You knew that he pretty much had it. You felt like it was, if he makes it, what transpired could transpire at the time. In real time, you're thinking this is what could happen. If he misses, then Rory McIlroy could coast it in there and really feel more loose. And honestly, Rory probably ends up birdieing 18 if he has that 2-shot advantage. But instead, he doesn't. It's only one after hitting another remarkable shot, this time on 17. Patrick Reed holding out on 17, just a fun anecdote there. No one was reacting, and he had no idea. Kind of did the Michael Block of, did it go in? Yeah, it did go in. So that was a funny anecdote to get himself to 9 under, and Patrick Reed ends up finishing solo third. Another opportunity for Reed to, another top 5 finish. This guy, I mean, say what you want about Patrick Reed, he plays Augusta pretty darn well. But Rory making birdie on 17, I thought when he stepped up to hit the putt and then backed away, I was thinking, oh boy, this is just like Justin Rose that we saw moments earlier on 17, where is he uncomfortable? But he reset himself, again, getting himself back into his process, drills it right on the money. Huge putt to get himself to 12 under. And then let's take a look at what happened on 18. The drive, setting himself up, and he talked about it, where he didn't have the most comfortable stance on 18 the first time in regulation, and he blows it out right. I thought he played a pretty good bunker shot. It's hard because you have that runoff that we saw Ludwig Oberg take when he was beating it all over the place on 18 after he ejected from the tournament. But that shot, you can easily run that all the way down. And now you're in danger territory. Now that's like Phil Mickelson, 2006 US Open, where he's going all over the place and back and forth across the green and multiple chips, and it didn't end up well for Phil in 06. But Rory, I thought that was a smart play to get it on the green, let it release. I know he surely would have loved to make that par putt to save himself from the playoff, but he did know that he did have the playoff there, and ends up missing the putt. It was one last jaw dropper where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I said right before that it felt like the Pinehurst putt. He's got the Pinehurst putt, about the same length, maybe a little bit longer. I don't know what the official measurement was for that par putt on 18, but it seemed like it was around the same distance. Not as much slope, of course, as a Pinehurst putt, and yanks it left, and here we go into a playoff where Rosie was warming up, and it was good to see someone finally, after a while of some pretty some finishes where we knew what was going to happen. We knew who the winner would be walking up the 72nd. It was nice seeing someone warm up for a playoff. I was very juiced up about that. But there we go. McIlroy and Rose at 11. And then we get to the playoff. Rory hits himself another perfect drive. Rose, not as good. But the second shot by Rose, and obviously that ends up being the difference. Both Jim and Trevor said it on the telecast that they were surprised it didn't release a little more. But it's just one of those Masters breaks, and he didn't get it up the slope enough, I thought. I actually thought if Rose hit the pin after that bounce, that actually might have benefited him more than if he would have, depending on where it goes. But in all likelihood, if he hits the pin, it either goes backwards straight down or left. And it probably doesn't go left far enough to where it runs off the green. So he might have actually benefited from hitting the pin more. We'll never know, especially if you've ever played golf. And if you ever hit a pin, you just have no idea where it would go. But it sticks up there. And Rory hits that 3/4 gap wedge, hits it high enough on the slope. And like they were saying, able to spin it a little bit more than a longer iron, like what Justin Rose had. And he puts it right down there. And boy, Rose gave it a heck of a putt. He gave it a good effort. It looked pretty good for about 95% of it. Just slides right. Rory ends up draining it. And I thought a small detail on the broadcast that gave me chills was when CBS put in the graphic in the upper right, 4 career Grand Slam. That is effing cool to see on the graphic. 4 career Grand Slam. We've never seen that graphic. That was just like, wow. It really put it in perspective. Obviously, we knew what he was going for. We knew that he was going for the career Grand Slam. But just to see it there with him standing over both the par putt on 18 and the birdie putt in the playoff was just wow. It almost like re-emphasized the magnitude of that putt. And who knows if we ever see that graphic again. And at Augusta, clearly Phil Mickelson has a chance at the U.S. Open every time he tees it up for the career Grand Slam. Not a lot of guys will have a chance to win the career Grand Slam. And to see it at Augusta, especially with Rory, and for him to finally drain that putt, it was really cool to see. And it would be wrong and unjust almost if Rory didn't have the career Grand Slam and ended his career as a Masters champion. And he got it done. He finally got it done, and the emotion that he let out, I knew it would be like what we saw. I mean, he said it. A decade of coming back to Augusta, answering all of the questions, well, most of the questions of when will you do this? When will you win the Masters? And the fact that he could have won his first major at Augusta, standing on the 10th tee with a chance to win. And, we know what happened. Shoots 80 and ends up one of the more impressive things that I think we don't talk about enough with Rory's career, the fact that he came back and the next major blitzes the field and wins by 8 strokes at Congressional, is kind of an underrated accomplishment in his career at 21 years old. Very mature thing to do. But the fact that he is able to check that box off, Masters champion, gets his green jacket, and career Grand Slam, pretty incredible stuff. And it's a moment that I think we'll remember where we were. And we talked about this yesterday in our live show recap for the third round, that it was going to be a day that we remember, regardless of who won. It lived up to the billing. I was trying to speak a playoff into existence all week. We finally got our playoff, finally got our just captivating second 9, and really 70th, 71st, and 72nd holes. It had been a while since we had anything where you were on the edge of your seat and something as riveting as what took place. Clearly, that's one of the all-time majors final rounds ever. And man, just a incredible accomplishment for Rory to get the job done. 89 is in the chat saying Rory had a couple of epic shots. Yes, he did. He had, honestly, more than a couple, right? I mean, he had so many unbelievable shots. I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 shots from that final round that you'll remember for a long, long time. And that's not even taking into consideration what took place yesterday on 15, and the fact that he slayed the dragon on 15 twice after the double bogey in the first round. And one of his 4 double bogeys that 89 mentioned, being the first Masters champion to have 4 double bogeys and still go on to win. And I believe Justin Ray had the stat. I want to look this up really quick. I want to get this stat right because I think it goes back to another great and thrilling major championship final round. Let's see here if we can find the stat. I might not be able to find it, but I believe what the stat was, the last time a major champion had made 4 bogeys in the entire championship was 2008, Tiger Woods at the US Open. So I believe that is the stat. I'll have to double check that, but I saw that somewhere from someone reputable. This wasn't just someone who makes stuff up. Justin Ray is a great follow, by the way, if you really enjoy golf. BA Niner fan, can't wait for the movie The Masters will release. That might be like a Harry Potter movie where it has to come out in multiple parts to fully encapsulate what took place this week. And there will be many movies made about this because you have to document what took place for Rory in 2011 and some of the other heartbreaks that he's had. 2022 Open Championship, 2024 US Open, all of the other backdoor top 10s and backdoor top 5s where he had a bad round somewhere along the way. There's going to be quite a few movies made, and the Masters, I know, will do an outstanding job of that. But let's talk a little bit of a broader perspective on Rory. So the question's been answered. Can he? Will he? Yes, he can. He can finally win at Augusta. He is immortalized as the career Grand Slam. And now you start to look at, well, where does he rank? Where is he in the pantheon of greatest golfers of all time? Because he doesn't have as many majors as some others, right? But he has the career Grand Slam. And in my opinion, that puts him, he's the greatest player of this generation. There's just no question about that. Even though him and Brooks each have 5, he's the greatest player of this generation. And I think he's right around, him and Phil Mickelson are probably level. If not, maybe Rory has a slight nod. Although Phil, you look at Phil's career, especially the way how he's played Augusta. I think Phil still has a slight advantage just because Rory doesn't have the length of Phil's career yet. I think once Rory gets to Phil's age, I would have to imagine he would surpass Phil. Right now, I think they're neck and neck. If you look at the entirety of Phil's career and the entirety of Rory's career, which I think is a compliment to both of them for being unequivocally top 10 greatest golfers of all time. And now we get to see where does Rory go from here? How much more free does he play next month at Quail, at the US Open, at Portrush for the Open? Ryder Cup year. He's got, this is like, and not to mention the Ryder Cup's on the road for Rory, being on Team Europe and it being at Bethpage Black. This could really free up Rory. And now when he gets into Quail, of course, he's played pretty well at in the past on PGA Tour events. He can just let it loose. He doesn't have the weight of the world on him of, hey, when can you win your next major? Hey, are you ever going to win another major? Are you ever going to win the career Grand Slam? This could unlock a lot for Rory moving forward. And that's a scary thing to think about if you're someone else in the field. It'll be interesting to see what the betting lines are for the PGA Championship. I'm sure we could pull that up here. But you just have to think that he really could pick off at least one more this year, maybe two. Do you think? PA Niner fan 87 thinks right around 7 will end up top 5 if he doesn't get injured, and that's a good point. You never know if big injuries will take place. Right now, looking at the odds from DraftKings for the PGA Championship, Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy are the favorites at plus 500. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, he has to make sure he doesn't get injured, but yeah, I would have to say who knows? Could he get to 7 majors this year? The way how he played, and Portrush is going to hold very near and dear to his heart, being up in Northern Ireland for the Open. And after having a very disappointing Open Championship in 2019 when it was last held at Portrush, the Open that Shane Lowry won, who knows? I mean, the stars are really aligned for the year of Rory. And if this unlocks him, and remember what we talked about on Wednesday in our preview show. He won at Pebble Beach. He won the Players at TPC Sawgrass. He now wins at Augusta. 3 of maybe the most famous courses in the United States. And certainly 3 of the more well-known courses globally. But those 3 might be the big 3 in the United States. And there's arguments for other courses, and that's certainly a fun conversation for another day. But could he add Portrush, to add to Storybook year and to bookend the major championship seasons with majors? Like I said, Quail, he plays there very, very well normally in the PGA Tour, and coming and riding the high of finally getting the green jacket and unleashing the weight of the world. US Open, who knows? It's a very interesting year for Rory that could be up ahead, and we could be looking at Rory winning multiple majors this year, plus, like I said, Ryder Cup being on the road. If he's able to, let's say he wins a second major somewhere along the way. Team Europe and Rory has a big performance on the road in the Ryder Cup, especially after the emotion that he had in 2021 at Whistling Straits, with Europe getting completely decimated by the United States. And he showed a lot of emotion. Hey, who knows? That it could be. He could really have one of the best years we've seen in quite some time. PA Niner fan 87 saying he won the 5th major and Augusta in the same year. That's impressive. Yeah, and he's done that in a month. That's another thing to add to it. It's been a month, and he's picked off what many call the 5th major and the first official major of the year, all in a month span. And I think Harry Diamond had a big say in that. We talked yesterday about Harry Diamond and him being so stoic. I think that really helped out Rory down the stretch, and probably helped Rory maybe even release some frustrations in the moment to help him get over it. And Rory he's a very deserving champion. And I think we take for granted Rory because, look, wherever you stand on the fence for men's professional golf, Rory, he has always been so open and so willing to just say his emotions. And not a lot of guys say that, especially in golf. They're not willing to really let you in. And I think that's part of why so many people love Rory McIlroy and are such fans of Rory, because he's authentic. He's relatable. He lets you in. He opens you in to, here's where my head's at. Here's where my heart's at. Yes. Should he have answered questions after the 2024 US Open? Absolutely. Would he like to maybe have a do-over? Perhaps. But other than that, he's he's been a pretty solid role model for athletes. And I think I think we take for granted that sometimes. Um, and you hear guys like Colin Morikawa say, "I don't owe you anything. I don't owe the media anything." And it's like, how are you going to gain fans if you're that standoffish? Um, and doubling and tripling down on that take. And then you look on the other side with Justin Rose, world class. The way how he handled himself post round, I truly, athletes everywhere, regardless of what sport, should watch what Justin Rose did on the green. He he gave Rory a hug. They had a small exchange. I saw Rosie go over and give Rory McIlroy's wife Erica a hug. The way how he talked to Amanda Balionis post round, and I'm sure he's doing post round press right now. That should be shown to every athlete, regardless of what sport. This is how you carry yourself, even after a loss. It was unbelievable stuff, and I think that's how you gain fans. That is how you win people over. And for Rose to continue to compete at this age, he's almost 45 years old. I mean, he's 5 years away from being on the Champions Tour, and he is still out there competing. T2 at the Open last year, solo second this year, T6 at the PGA Championship last year as well, a T9 at the PGA in 2023, solo 7 at the Masters 2021, T8 at the PGA in 2021 as well. All he does is just put himself in these situations year after year. And it's pretty remarkable that no matter where this game evolves, whether it's gaining distance, technology of the golf ball, technology of golf clubs, whether there's rollback or not, or bifurcation, anything like that, the fact of the matter is sometimes these guys like Justin Rose, he's still out there and not just competing. He is legitimately contending, and I think that is a really cool storyline that might not get talked about as much just because of Rory winning, but Rosie is not going away anytime soon, and I thought that was just so admirable for what Justin Rose did. PA Niner fan 87 talking about the way how Bryson handled himself amazingly as well. Yeah, Bryson, he was certainly frustrated out there, but he didn't show the frustration like old Bryson did. He showed it in a different way, and still, again, talking to the press afterwards, and probably the most frustrated out of them all, because he's looking at the leaderboard going, wow, if I just par 11, now the revisionist history goes, because I said, and I still think he needed to go for that pin at 11, but revisionist history, if I just play 11 even, there's 2 shots back. Maybe if on 4 or on 3 I go for it a little more. That's he's probably playing that game now of, if I did this, or I should have done that, or maybe I aim a little bit this way rather than this way. But given the time and circumstance, he had no choice, and especially on 11, and yeah, he handled himself very well and very graciously, and that's all you can ask for. And it seems like he's starting to figure Augusta out, and it seems like Bryson is on a trajectory to one day pick off one of these Masters and get himself a green jacket. But he ends up finishing 7 under, T5. Let's go over the leaderboard, where things stand. Remember, top 12 and ties come back to the Masters. So let's go over everybody who will be coming back next year. So obviously, Rosie and Rory tying after 72 holes at 11 under. Rory, your Masters champion. Patrick Reed, he'll be coming back for his the rest of his life. Solo third finish at 9 under, and sneaky. I mean, this is a guy that, man, it seems like he always ends up hanging around, and you like forget that he's so good at Augusta. T12 in 2024, T4 in 2023, and T35 in 2022. Not his best, but a T8 in 2021, a T10 in 2020. Obviously, winning in 2018. This course really fits his eye, especially since he won it. And he's one of those guys that maybe you don't, if you're into wagering, maybe you don't bet on him to win, but top 10, top 5, it seems like Patrick Reed is the guy that you'll want. Scotty Scheffler played about as terrible as he could to shoot 69. He did not have it today, and somehow ends up solo 4 at 8 under, 3 shots out of a playoff. Not his best stuff this week. It's hard to do what he did, to have to go up and try and get 2 and 3, and now 3 and 4, and make history and win back-to-back Masters. But he gave it his all, and surely he'll be another favorite next year at the Masters. He'll be one of the favorites, if not the favorite, from here on out for every major. We already went over him and Rory are tied at the top there. How about Sungjae Im? Sungjae played the par 5s perfect, played him at 4 under, shoots 69. And I said that mark earlier in the week, where at Augusta, if you play the par 5s at 4 under, you can afford yourself bogeys on 4 and 5, like Sungjae had. He also bogeyed 16, shoots 3 under 69, gets himself T5. Hell of a payday for Sungjae, first off, and more importantly, guarantees himself another trip to Augusta. Him and Bryson, T5. Ludwig Oberg, solo 7th at 6 under. That doesn't show how much in contention he was today. We've talked quite a bit about him this week. He's getting multiple majors, in my opinion. I think everyone would be shocked if he doesn't have multiple majors by the end of his career. Xander Schauffele, he is a T8, 5 under. He shares that with Zach Johnson, who will be coming back for life. And Xander, he will be coming back for a couple of years with, at least for the next 3 Masters, with his major victories last year. Zach Johnson, a lifer, shooting 5 under. A little surprised that he ends up being a top 10. That might have been a pretty good payday if you had Zach Johnson top 10. Jason Day, another probably pretty good payday for J Day, turning the clock back a little bit. 5 under, shot even today to finish T8. Corey Connors, T8. He'll be back at Augusta next year. I mean, putted 3rd worst out of the whole field today. Lost 3.64 strokes putting. That'll do it. That'll eject you from the tournament right away. There were some tough putts. I mean, the one that he missed on 1, where it didn't touch the hole. I mean, CBS probably could have dropped him from coverage then, and that sucks because I enjoy watching Corey Connors, but oh, geez, that was a gut punch right off the rip. Corey, not his best stuff. Harris English, 4 under, sneaks into top 12 with Max Homa. Those players will be returning next year for the Masters. Max hasn't made a cut since the Open in 2024. And how about that? He's coming back to Augusta next year, secured his spot in Augusta. And Harris English, solid career. Not a guy that you would expect to hang around the top 15 of Augusta, but there he is. 4 under today, did his work and gets himself into Augusta next year. But what a day. This is going to be a day that we will remember for a long time. We will remember this day for not just Rory McIlroy winning, but for all of the drama on the back 9. And this was one of those all-time days to be on social media, riding the twists and turns with every single shot. And it took the clock back to a different time when when social media used to be fun, candidly. And this was one of those days where everyone was locked in. Everyone was just throwing memes and gifs out left and right and just firing away of it's over, it's not over. I saw the Vince Carter gif multiple times. It took you back to a day where it was so enthralling all day long from start to finish. You never knew what was going to take place next. And that's what you want in sports. You want unpredictability. You don't want it. I don't care. I just don't care what you say. You want that kind of moment. Blowouts suck. They just do. Even if you're a fan of a player or a team, it at some point you check out and you're like, oh, okay, we know what's going to happen. It's the fourth quarter of a football game and our team's up 35. Like, yeah, this is kind of boring. Let's get to the celebration. This is what you live for. As a sports fan of anything, and it lived up to it. And very rarely do you have these events where it's so built up and there's so much positive energy and excitement going towards it that it actually delivers. And boy, did it deliver, not just today, but this whole week. I mean, round one, round two, I said it on Friday night. Round two is one of the most memorable second rounds I've ever seen. It just was, there was so much action going on. And moving day yesterday provided all of the twists and turns, and today really capped it off. This major championship as a whole delivered. And it's why this is my favorite tournament of the whole year. It's one of my favorite sporting events. It's hard to top it, especially after this year. But I say this in when it's non-major season, even that the Masters is one of my favorite events. Period. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's sports or not sports. It's just one of my favorite events. I look forward to it every year, and it delivered. It always delivers in its own way. Whether somebody wins by 12 shots like Tiger, or whether it's Rory McIlroy completing the career Grand Slam, doing so at the Masters, something that's only been done by Gene Sarazen, who also had to do it in a playoff, did it with a magnificent shot on 15, and Rory doing multiple magnificent shots on 15. But it's man, what a day. What a day it was for Rory McIlroy. PA Niner fan 87, do you think Max figured something out? Time will tell. I think this next month will be interesting, especially with the PGA Tour allowing rangefinders for the next month. It's experimental. Remember, PGA Championship allows rangefinders. Masters, U.S. Open, Open Championship, no rangefinders. PGA Tour, for the most part, does not allow rangefinders. But this upcoming month, we get to see, does it help out with pace of play? I don't think it's going to help out a ton. Especially if you watch some players play. They need a lot more than a rangefinder. But that's going to be coming up, and I think it'll be curious to see how Max plays over the next month, and going to a course that maybe it's a lot more like a PGA Tour setup, so that could help Max boost himself forward. But this next month will be pretty telling. Keeping that momentum going from Augusta, he's got to be feeling very good and very proud of himself going into the the next month of the season. Well, let's see, what time are we at? We are at a little over an hour. So I think that really does it. We just saw one of the greatest Masters tournaments as a whole. And a Grand Slam champion for the first time since Tiger Woods, a Grand Slam champion in Rory McIlroy. It's fitting. It would have been cruel for him to finish his career without it. And now, where does he go? Who knows? But it certainly won't be down. I would imagine that he will be, I imagine he will be going upwards for quite some time. PA Niner fan 87 asks, what shot will you remember the most for Rory today? You know, it's tough. That's a really good question because there's so many that stand out. Do you go positive and think of that shot on 15? Well, then he ended up missing the birdie putt. That probably will get replayed quite a bit. I think those two shots on 15 will be very memorable. The shot on 13, that's going to be a pretty memorable shot for the wrong reasons. The putt on 17. Oh, I know you're saying I can't answer it. I think for me, what I'll remember the most is his putt in the playoff to win it. That's probably the one that I'll remember the most. Because he had just missed that par putt on 18, that same green. He is just 2 or 3 steps away from where his putt was. And the fact that the same stakes are on the line. Make it, it's yours. The green jacket is his. Miss it, the tournament continues because he's probably not blasting it past. And that reaction that he had afterwards. So it's that final putt plus the reaction. That's what I'll remember the most from today. I think 10 years from now, when we look back at the 2025 Masters in 2035, I think I'll remember that. And that was Jim Nantz put it perfectly. Such an authentic reaction. But would you expect anything else from Rory McIlroy? I certainly didn't. It was the reaction that I envisioned. To a certain degree, I didn't know, exactly. I wouldn't know how the motions, but I figured he would just let it all out, and that's what he did, and he did it Rory's way. So I think that will wrap it up. If you guys have any other questions in the chat, fire them away while I plug our website, elisportsnetwork.com. Make sure you bookmark it. I'm going to write a piece about Rory McIlroy. I'll put that up tomorrow. So we'll keep an eye out for that. I'll be continuing golf news and headlines and some other solo golf articles on the website. Been doing that, trying to get 3 times a week. That's the benchmark that I've set for myself. Like to hit that. We've got a lot of golf coming our way. It's an action-packed month. The RBC Heritage, a signature events coming up this week. We'll talk about that in Wednesday's edition of Golf News and Headlines. And let me know if in the comment section or on a post that I have on that we have on our website. Well, we don't have a comment section there, but on our Twitter or X @YourESN, if you want more of these live shows. I plan on doing these for the majors. Now, the PGA Championship might get a little complicated. That's going to be in the middle of the state spring sports season. So it might not be every night for the PGA Championship. Well, we don't know the dates of when these district and state tournament games will be played specifically. But certainly Sunday night of PGA Championship, there will be a live reaction show again. And then US Open and Open Championship. I want to do the same thing. 5 days. I want to go 5 for 5 like we did this week. This was a lot of fun. Really appreciate PA Niner Fan 87. Thank you very much for joining in on the chat and everyone that joined in on the chat the last couple of days. But again, let me know if you want more of this. Look for more content on elisportsnetwork.com, where we will have an article up tomorrow, news and headlines on Wednesday, and some more stuff on Friday. That's typically the time frame for getting things up there. So that will do it. Rory McIlroy, Grand Slam, and finally a Masters champion. What a memorable week it was. I had a lot of fun doing this. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed the live shows. Certainly, everyone enjoyed the Masters, even if you were on the wrong side of it for whatever rooting interest you had. It was a great week. A great weekend. and I can't wait for next year already. Oh, cannot wait to have another Masters recap. But so long. Have a great and safe evening. We'll see you next time. Take care.